Welcome back to the Sports Scene. Angola and Sudan's progress from Group F were remarkable stories on their own. But doing so at the expense of one of Africa's heavyweights makes their achievement all the more telling. Ghana, who are four-time African champions, just never got going. The Black Stars lost their opening game at home to Angola and struggled to recover. Despite their poor early showing, they still had a chance to progress coming into the final two games, but a draw against Angola and Luanda in the first one killed off any hopes. It's a massive fall from grace for a team who qualified for the 2022 World Cup in Qatar, but then failed to emerge from their group at the AFCON finals in Cote d'Ivoire earlier this year. Ghana are still well placed in qualification for the 2026 World Cup, but some analysts believe the signs are bad.
We need to do a whole review of how our collapses are done. And I say this because I feel like there's been a lot of bluff from some of the players. Perhaps there are things we do not know. And maybe we need a proper post-mortem of some of these issues. Because to have the boys play the way they did, not to care when they are losing, and not to even have the awareness that they are donning the national jersey.
Well, let's talk more about the just concluded Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers for the 2025 showpiece. And we can now cross over to Egypt to speak to African football expert Marwan Saeed. Marwan, welcome to Sports Scene. Thank you for joining us. Marwan, done and dusted. Which top-ranked side should have qualified for AFCON 2025 but did not, and why?
Look, if we're going to speak in all honesty, obviously Ghana are the big team, or the biggest team that will miss on the AFCON, especially after 10 consecutive appearances. It seems to me that over the past, I can say actually since the 2018 World Cup, maybe even before that, Ghana specifically, they have a lot of off-field issues. Whether it's with officials, or we hear a lot of stuff like plane tickets, players paying their own plane tickets and all that. So it's always some sort of extra added pressure from the outside on the Ghanaian national team. And at some point, they were going to have a reality check. And I think this is a big reality check for Ghanaian football in general, so that, yeah, everyone takes a good look at themselves and say, is this how we're working together to take Ghana to the biggest competitions? No. So they have to find a solution for all their off-field issues.
Well, indeed, Ghana needs to find those solutions. It's very important going forward. Meanwhile, Marwan, there are reports that we're hearing that Guinea has filed a complaint against Tanzania for AFCON qualifier rules breach. What do we know about this?
It's a weird case where one team is accusing another team that they fielded a player whose identity is basically unknown. According to the Article 50 of the CAF regulations, that the players, they should be, the player names and their shirt numbers, they should be disclosed in the team sheet before, or the team list, squad, whatever you may call it, roster, prior to the games and prior to the competition. So basically, there was a player that got on the field wearing the number 26, and no one knew who he was. His number wasn't on the team sheet. His name isn't on the team sheet. There was no name apparently on the t-shirt. It's some sort of weird situation where no one knows who this player is. He came on in the 73rd minute or around that minute. So obviously the calls for disqualification can be legitimate for that reason. But we'll have to see how CAF handle this situation, because it's very delicate.
All right, we'll just have to wait and see about that. Marwan, looking back at the qualification process that didn't produce any new debutant to the tournament, would you say it was harder than the previous two editions of the qualifiers?
If it was harder, I would say if it was easy on the big teams, not harder. If it was easy on the big teams, then we wouldn't see big nations like Ghana not qualify. I think the qualifiers were fine, to be honest. You have to think if the smaller nations cannot cause an upset, so they'll be going to AFCON and they will not have a chance. So at the end of the day, we want a high quality competition where there's a lot of fighting on the pitch, basically, a lot of teams that show and prove their worth. So if you can't do that in the qualifiers, no matter how they are, I think it poses a question of whether you're good enough to make the competition or not, and if you are good enough to actually add value to the competition. So I would assume that this question is the right one in case Ghana did qualify, but at the end of the day, you have a big team that's not qualifying. So I wouldn't say that it was a difficult qualifying stage. No, we have big teams missing out, and we have teams causing upsets. So I think it's well balanced, to be honest.
All right, well said, Marwan. Your points are well taken. But finally, before we let you go, Marwan, the qualifiers have ended 13 months before the tournament begins in Morocco in December 2025. The question is, how will teams remain in top shape until then?
If I'm being completely honest, it's very good for the players, to be honest. It's very, very good to the players, because we are in the era of a lot of football games, a lot of strenuous activities for these players. People think, yeah, but they get paid and this is their jobs and all that. But at the end of the day, they are, even if so, they are human. So to basically stuff their year or schedule always with matches and high intensity matches, this is not always it's never a good idea. So to have a period where there's a 1 year gap where the players can catch a breath, basically, and not have everything crammed into a certain time limit, I think it can actually do more good than harm. Obviously, we have the national teams coming together. It will not be as frequent as how it should be, but at the end of the day, if the players are in a good physical and mental state, we have to focus on that, then I believe that we will have a chance of a high quality competition at the end.
All right, Marwan, we hear you loud and clear here on Sports Scene. That was Marwan Saeed, African football expert, joining us from Cairo, Egypt. Marwan, thanks for that. Now, moving along, the road to Morocco began with preliminary roads in March before concluding with the group phase these past 3 months. Now, let's recap the 24 teams who successfully navigated the journey. And staying with the Africa Cup of Nations, but this time the 2025 women's edition, Morocco also hosting this tournament, and they've been drawn with Zambia, Senegal, and the Democratic Republic of Congo in Group A. Record winners Nigeria are grouped with Tunisia, Algeria, and Botswana. Defending champions South Africa will play Ghana, Mali, and Tanzania. The top two in each group will progress to the quarterfinals along with the two best third-placed teams. The tournament will open on July the 5th.